All right, so here we are. If you recall, we had our layers here from last time. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add a few more extra effects on here and sort of brighten some things and change some things around just a little bit. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the stuff that we have here and I'm going to put it in a folder. All right, organization is key. So I'm going to select my top here. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to click on this folder and I'm going to call this folder. I'm going to click on it. There we go. And I'm going to call this, I'll just call it skin. You can call it whatever you like. I'm going to click on the bottommost picture. I am going to hold on the shift key. I'm going to click on the top and I'm going to drag this inside that folder. So now all of these things are neatly tucked away inside this folder. And this is just great to know because if you get too many layers and levels, you start to get lost. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the eyes and the teeth. So here we have, if you recall from before, let me shut this off here. All right, pretty good transition there. We softened everything. We changed some things around here a little bit, right? So what I would like to do now is I'm going to brighten her eyes a little bit. You can see her teeth are just a little bit yellowish. Sorry, I apologize to my model for pointing out all their poor flaws here. So we're going to whiten those a little bit. Plus the eyes are nice here. They have this beautiful little captured light in there, highlight. But I'm just going to bring out the color of the eyes just a little bit more. All right, so to do that, I'm going to use two different layers. The first layer I'm going to use is I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to come to, some people use curves. Again, we're going to keep it simple with what we know for now, so I'm going to say levels. I'm going to go to my levels. I'm just going to pay attention to the eyes here. I'm going to darken the eye color a little bit, but then I'm going to bring this over, and I'm going to lighten those eyes way up like that. All right, now obviously the rest of the picture is just way too blown out, but all I'm looking at is this part right here, right? Some beautiful color in there. And let's go like that. All right, so that's perfect. So then what I'm going to do with this is I am going to select my layer mask here. I'm going to say edit. Oops. I'm going to say edit. I'm going to say fill. I'm going to fill it with black. And we know that filling it with black is going to cancel that layer mask. There we go. It canceled everything out of my layer mask here because it just shut it off. I'm going to go to my paintbrush. I'm going to use a white paintbrush. I'm going to shrink it down. I'm just using the parentheses key right here. You can also, remember, make all your brush adjustments up here. The hardness of this brush, I'm going to keep it at, I'm going to go like 50%, right? And I'm going to turn my opacity down. I'm going to turn my opacity down to like 20%, or 21 is fine. All right, I'm going to shrink it a little bit. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, use my space bar, bring it down, and I'm going to paint one paint right under there, one paint right there. And I'm just going to turn this on. Look at this. This is just one pass. Look at how I brighten her eyes up. All right, I'm going to go again, and I'm going to go again. Now, most of the time, a little bit is a lot. I'm going to sort of overemphasize these eyes a little bit. Oops. So I do one more just so they're really bright. And that other eye is probably naturally a little darker than it. There you go. Look at that. So here we are before. Here I am after. Look at those magical eyes. And again, I did it so much now she starts to look a little bit strange. You can always go back to your opacity up here. And I can turn that opacity layer down just a little bit so it's a little bit more realistic. But again, for our dramatic purposes here, I'm going to turn it way up to the top. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to whiten her teeth, right? So then I'm going to go here. I'm going to say hue and saturation, which is right here. And I'm going to do the same thing that I just did to the eyes layer here is I'm going to take my saturation and I'm going to say 0. All right, and maybe I'll put just a little bit of saturation here. Like so. Just like this, but I took all the color out. Again, I'm going to be at this layer mask. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go to my edit. I'm going to say fill. I'm going to say with black, which is already selected. I'm going to say OK. It just canceled everything on that. Close this window. Then I'm going to zoom in again. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Bring it up here. And I'm going to paint with my white paintbrush. It's a little smaller. I'm going to start to paint these teeth out a little bit. And again, I'm using a very low opacity. I'm just trying to clean the teeth out here. Cleaning the teeth. Photoshop Pro and Dentist. All right, so all I'm doing here, the magic that's happening here, is I'm just taking the color out, right? So the value is there, the texture, all that stuff is still there. I'm just taking the color out so they're not quite so yellow. you just want to be careful that you don't hit the gums and everything. But like here, see how these gums are really pink? So I'm also going to just tap just ever so gently in a couple places here. I'm going to try to tone that down just a little bit. All right, yeah, I don't know if I care for that too much here. I'm going to bring it back a little bit. I'm going to take care of those gums in another way because her gums are just becoming sort of gray. I would rather them become a little bit lighter. All right, the other thing I can do is up here in her eyes, if her eyes have this sort of color to it as well, I can flip-flop to my white brush, and I can also paint out some of this yellow or some of this white in her eyes. Right. And also, if I don't like what's happening with the veins in her eyes too, I can go to my skin layer, to my heal layer, remember that? Use my healing brush, and I'm going to option click some of this, and I'm going to paint that over here. All right, and I'm sort of smoothing that out a little bit. And I'm doing this fast. You guys are going to take a little more time. You can see I'm accidentally getting some of that eye color in there, which is no good. I got to make these smaller. Right. But again, just using that desaturating. Go back to my hue and saturation mask up here. Make sure I'm in the right layer. And paint those out of here. And even this part, I'm going to desaturate this part of her eye that's really red here. There we go. Those zoom out. All right, so this is before, after. All right, you know, not a huge difference, but you can see, especially the teeth, you know, they look a little gray, but we're going to bump the levels up on those a little bit too, so we'll brighten them up a little bit. All right, so then I'm going to make a folder here. I'm going to call this eyes, oops, and teeth, oops, teeth. Don't forget to brush your teeth. There we go. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here, I'm going to throw this in that folder. So now I got this folder, and I got this folder neatly tucked away here. All right, then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do just a few color adjustments on here. All right, if you remember from our other example here, we had a bunch of different ways to do this. I'm going to go, you know, I'm just going to start this one in the folder. So I'm going to make a folder here, drag it to the top. Oops, sorry, I threw it inside that folder. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to call this color. And then inside this folder, I'm going to add, let's see, what should we do first? You know, let's do color balance. So here's color balance. So if your picture is a little bit too red or orange or yellow or something like that, what you do is you go to color balance, and you can see here, in light, the colors, the opposite colors are a little bit different. The opposite of yellow is blue, the opposite of green is magenta, the opposite of cyan is red. So if you have too much red in your picture, you start to pull this over to the cyan. See that? And it takes it right out of there. Look at that. So here's without, here's with. Now if I have too much blue or green, I need a little magenta, I can bring the magenta over. And if I have a little too much blue or yellow, I just sort of drag those in a different way. So I'm going to shut that down. And again, there's no magic equation for this. So that's without, that's with. You might like yours a little bit warmer, a little bit cooler. Totally up to you. All right. But I kind of like that right there. So then I'm also going to go back to my black and white cookie here. I'm going to say levels. I'm going to just tweak my levels one more time here. I'm going to go darken those shadows. I'm going to bring the lights up a little bit because I want it to be a little brighter. Just like so. All right. And again, maybe there's not a whole lot of difference in there, but I feel like it just adds a little bit of light to the picture. If I wanted to, I could go here to black and white cookie. I'm going to say levels again. In this one, I'm going to add black to the layer. Well, actually, first I'm going to brighten her teeth up. Oops. There you go. So I'm brightening her eyes and her teeth a little bit. I'm going to go to my edit. I'm going to say fill. I'm going to say black, just like so. I'm going to come back with my good old-fashioned white paintbrush. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to paint this part of her eye with white. Maybe to hurry things up here, I'm going to turn my opacity up a little bit more. There you go. That's a little bit much, but again, you will take your time to do this a little slower. And I can also, remember, I can always turn down just the overall opacity of this layer. I just want her eyes to be too like gray and crazy looking there. then her teeth as well. I'm brightening these teeth up here. There we go. There we go. You know, again, you can go back and mess with the opacity, the other layer there, brighten things up, darken things up a little bit. Let's come out this way. All right, so look at that, much brighter, right? And again, too much? Maybe. So we'll just pull back a little bit. We don't want her to look like she just came out of the teeth whitening salon too badly there. But again, see how her teeth are sort of grayish and now they're much brighter there. All right, so there you go, a little bit of help. And again, over time, a little bit of finesse, all that good stuff, you'll work on these things a little bit more. All right, a couple other last color choices you can make here. One underneath this is our gradient map. Remember that one? Right now it's just black and white, but I can change it to be, these are my, under this little cog here, remember? We had some different ones here. We're using photographic toning right now. You can reset your gradients here to the defaults. Remember, we had these crazy guys here. And then on this layer adjustment, instead of normal, I said you could try color dodge, you could try overlay, you know, try a bunch of different things here. Just experiment with the things, right? This is kind of cool. It looks sort of like an old Coca-Cola ad or something. You know, maybe it's a little bit too much, so I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Look at that, totally looks like a crazy vintage, like a Coke ad, right? Like that sort of reddish color. And then the cool thing about this is I can go back in here and I can change this at any time to become something different as well. All right, so that overlay is kind of cool. I kind of like that one. I'm going to leave it for now. You could come back down in here. You could even use black and white, which is cool. Because when you think of black and white, you think about it just being like, oh my gosh, you know, everything became sort of black and white. But you can also, what you're doing here is you're adjusting contrast, right? So then if I change the properties of the black and white layer to overlay, right? Look what happens now when I change this. It's changing just that red channel, which is adding some different colors and values to my piece. So here's like the midtones, right? To the yellows, cyans, you got these blues here. Oops. All right, a little bit more subtle in those directions here. You can see just in a little bit of the highlights and shadows. So your heavy hitters here are going to be really adding and changing that out of there. I'm not a huge fan of that one, so I'm going to dump it in the trash here. There you go. You know, experiment a little bit. Look under here and see what these things are. All you can do is put one on, change it around a little bit, and then erase it if you don't like it, or change the opacity of the layer, change it down, shift it around. So there you have it. So that's your basic images here. I'm going to shut this folder down. I'm going to open this one up. Let's see if I can just shut everything down with this. So that was our before, and that's our after, right? Total glamour shot there. Totally, like I said, maybe 50s Coca-Cola pinup or something like that. And you're on your way. So experiment and play.